Hey my glam girls, welcome back to my channel. It's Chelsea, where we talk about all things glam and all things girly. I'm a beauty consultant who loves to talk about everything dealing with beauty and makeup, and today we're continuing on with Pat McGrath's Celestial Nirvana collection with her two artistry size palettes. That's what her website says. So I'll be showing you how I created both of these eye looks, share with you my thoughts, who I think these palettes would be best for, and all of that. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I truly do appreciate it. And let's get right into this video. So yes, we've got both the Pat McGrath Celestial Nirvana eyeshadow palettes. Like I said, I do believe she's calling these her artistry palettes. And so each one of these palettes does retail for $36. I know you can get them off of Pat McGrath's website. And also, just to let you know, today, October the 14th, the rest of the collection has released on Pat McGrath's website. So the additional blush and highlighter palettes, the lip products, and all of that. So I'll have links down below should you choose to shop through those links. I really do appreciate it because it does help to support my channel. Now let's get into the details of these eyeshadow palettes. So first we're gonna start with this one that's called Bronze Bliss. So the packaging of these palettes are that of the Celestial Nirvana palette, the larger size. It's that sturdy cardboard packaging. We do get a nice size mirror. Sorry for blinding you all. I mean, it's definitely functional, especially if you're trying to look at a certain portion of your face. And then we get these 5 shadows. So we get 1 silky matte in this palette, 2 metallics, and then 2 shimmering foils. So she says that you're able to take the matte shade, smoke out the look. You're able to take the shimmering foil shades and also the metallic shades and get a very multi-dimensional, buildable type of look. So this is going to be the cooler toned palette compared to Nude Allure. Nude Allure is this palette right here, also retailing for $36. And then we also get the same combination of formula, 1 silky matte, 2 shimmering foils, and then 2 metallic shades. This of course is going to be the warmer tone of the collection. And I really do like that Pat McGrath did come out with a cool tone and a warm tone, just because I like things like that are nice and organized in a specific type of way. And I think it's easier to figure out what type of look you might want to do. If you want to go cool tone, you know which one to reach for. Warm tone, you know which one to reach for. So I do like how she individualized the types of palettes. Let's get into some quick swatches of these, and then we'll get into the eye looks. So first we have Nude Moon. She says that you can use this one to illuminate the inner corner and brow bone with intense luminosity. Then we have Lavia Noor. She says add depth to the socket, crease, outer corner, and lower lash line. You could also pack it over the lid or use a damp brush to line the lash line. And let me just kind of go over that a little bit more so you can see it. Then we have Lunar Luxury. Pat says emphasize the eyes with a flash of metallic color. Use a finger to swipe the color across the lids and use a blending brush for seamless blend. Then we have Bronzed Milk. Pat McGrath says sculpt and shade the eyes by blending through the crease, outer corner, and lower lash line. You could also use a flat brush to pack onto the lid for extra dimension. And then lastly, we have Bronze Illusion, and she says you can accentuate the eyes by pressing the metallic copper bronze over the center of the lids and the inner corner. So here are all 5 shades of this palette here, Bronze Bliss. And like I said, this one gives us more of a cooler story. But what I do like about this palette is that it's not overly cool tone. So if you're someone who's kind of like, I'm not really into cool tones, I could do neutral, but maybe not totally cool, I do think this palette could also still be appealing to you if you do like palettes like this and you are interested in this one. So for this eye look, I first started off with the 1 matte shade in the palette, took that shade, blended it across the lower lash line, and then I also created some structure to this eye. So I wanted to concentrate the black lid directly into my crease, leave a space, and then concentrate it right here in the inner portion of the eye. After I placed the black shadow where I wanted it to be, I did start to blend it just a little outward so that the line wouldn't be so harsh where this outer V is. But I did want to keep the black liner or the black shadow here quite intense because I did want you to see a distinctive difference between the black graphic line on the outer edge of the eye compared to the inner corner of the eye. I will say that this black shade does blend really easily. So after I finished both eye looks, I went on to put on my concealer. And then of course, you know, if you do your eye look first and you go to put on concealer, that can cover up the lower lash line or kind of make it a little harsh. So I went in with my blender brush. Can't find it right now, but went in with my blender brush. I didn't even add more pigmentation, and I just started blending the lower lash line, and that shadow blended really effortlessly, so you couldn't see like that sharp line of where my concealer finished and where the eyeshadow began. So really like this shadow right here. I would agree that this is definitely a silky matte buildable type of shade, because after I blended out the shadow, I wanted to intensify it like right along here. So I added some more and I was able to get that intensity that I wanted. So a very usable, friendly type of black shade. And I would say this is more so like a charcoal black. It's not an intense like rich black, but it's more of like a charcoal black. So it does fit the cooler tone of this palette. So after that, I went in with this shade here called Bronzed Mink, and I concentrated that right along here, and this one blended really nicely onto the eye. It's definitely more of a buildable shade, and I think for instance, if you do want it to be more sheared out, go in with a brush and kind of blend it onto the eyelid. But if you do want to pack it on, get more of that intensity, I would say either spray your brush before you go and apply it onto the eye. Of course, using a more dense brush like a flat shader brush, or even go in with your finger. I went in with a flat brush because I wanted to make sure I kept the shadow where I wanted it to be. I did not spray my brush at all because I just wanted you all to see the intensity of the shadow on its own. But next time I would use this shade, just so if I wanted to get more intensity by it, I would spray my brush so that it could be packed on a little bit more. But I do think it came out really nicely and you can see it. But I do feel just going in with a brush on its own, the formula is a little, it's not as opaque. I'll say this, not as opaque. It is more of a buildable formula, which is what she says. So taking nothing away from the shadow, because that's how she intended the shadow to be. So after Bronze Mink, I went in with this shade right here called Bronze Illusion and put that in the center of the eye. And I would say that the formulation wise is about the same, meaning that it is buildable. If you wanted this shadow to be more intense, then I would say spray your brush, or maybe go in with her artistry wand first and then apply this shadow on top just to make it pop. But in all honesty, these shadows will probably work really well in terms of pigmentation with your fingers. So depending on, you know, what look you're trying to go for, I would say use your finger with these. For this shadow, I wanted it to be right here in the middle. So then after that, I think I went in with this particular eyeshadow right here called Nude Moon. She said shade to outline the black line or the black shadow right along here. And then I also took it and just added it right here at the top of the brown bone. And let me just say, these shadows are beautiful, okay? They are beautiful. Okay, let me go on. Okay, so that's what I did there. And then lastly, I took this shade right here called Lunar Luxury, and that's what I used to fill in the inner portion of the eye. I would say for Nude Moon, even though I didn't use that shadow in large concentration, when I was applying it, I did feel the need to dip back into the shadow a couple of times to get the intensity that I wanted. So I would say for all four of these shades here, the shimmering foil shades and the metallic shades, they are buildable shades, which is what she said. So unless you're using your finger or if you're spraying your brush, you're not gonna get, if I could say, full-on opacity just using the brush alone. And not saying that it's sheer, it's not sheer, but you know, sometimes Pat McGrath, I mean, you could literally like tap your brush in there and you're like, whew, full-on opacity. These shades are not like that, which is okay because you can build to them. And like I said, use your finger, spray your brush, and you can get the intensity that you wanted. When I went in with Nude Mood and I was applying the shadow above the black shadow, I just sprayed my brush to make sure it was a little more intense, because I will say Nude Moon is quite, it is a little more sheer than these three shades are. This would definitely be a beautiful highlight on the face. I didn't use it today as a highlight because I have another palette or two palettes on my face. These are the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk palettes. So that's what I have on my face, but I would most definitely use this shade as a highlighter for my complexion because it is stunning. If you want to see it again, it's this shade right here. I think it would look so beautiful on the face. So that is Bronze Bliss. Now getting into Nude Allure, we'll do some quick swatches and then get into the eye look. What she says for Mercurial Rose, you can use this shadow to illuminate the inner corner and brow bone with intense luminosity. Then we have Mahogany Angel. She says you can add depth to the socket, crease, outer corner, and lower lash line. You can also pack it over the lid or use a damp brush to line the lash line. Then we have Coral Rose. Use a finger or a dense brush to intensify the eyes with a flash of glittering coral. Plum Eclipse. Use a blending brush to apply a wash of shimmer across the lid or a small detailed brush to intensify the crease. And then lastly, we have Naked Bronze. Give the eyes a multi-dimensional bronze finish by pressing over the lid or illuminating the inner corner. So these are the shadows from Nude Allure, the more warm toned palette, definitely more of like a pinky coralish type of palette. So getting into this eye look here, but first went in with Mahogany Angel with a very fluffy brush and just kind of lightly blended that into the crease. Then I went in with a more detailed brush and I took that same matte shade and concentrated it into the crease. Then I went in with Danessa Myricks Color Fix in Nude 2 and I cut my crease. After that, I went in with the shade right here called Mercurial Rose. And so took that into the inner corner of the eye, and this shade is quite light by itself against that Nude 2 eyeshadow. Now I'm sure if I use this against my skin, you can definitely see it here and see more of its color, but against that kind of yellowish base, it does look quite light. That's okay though. So then I just wanted to transition that shade of like pinky coral. So after Mercurial Rose, I think I went in with Coral Kiss next. I think that's what I did. And I used that in the middle of the eye. Once again, you really can't see too much of a differentiation against that lighter base, but looking at Coral Kiss on the back of my hand, you can see it in its tone a little bit more. I'm gonna re-swatch it so you can see how buildable it is. And I would say that this shade is definitely more like a shimmer topper, meaning that it is buildable, but it is definitely not as opaque in its base compared to some of the other shades. After that, I went in with this shade right here called Naked Bronze, and that is what I used on this outer area of the eye. Same thing, here is Naked Bronze on the back of my hand. You're seeing a transition of color, but these shades are not as intense against that light base. But I do think it all came together, and I do like the way that this eyeshadow does look. I went on the lower lash line back in with Mahogany Angel and smoked it out right along the lower lash line. And then for the inner corner, I went in with this shade called, what is this shade called? It's called Plum Eclipse. That's what you see here. And then I actually took Plum Eclipse and just outlined the crease, the cut crease of the eye, because I felt like it was missing something, and I was like, oh, this is pretty. This is gorgeous. I love how it just kind of like helped to kind of ground the cut crease and give it a little bit more pizzazz. It's very subtle, but you can definitely see it there. So those are the two looks that I came up with. And in all honesty, guys, I love both of them, like both of them. And I know that the looks are definitely different. We've got a little bit more of a dramatic look over here. And I would say this one is a bit more dramatic too, but I really, really enjoy how both of them came out, and I think they look lovely. In terms of the eyeliners that I used, both of them are by Natasha Denona, and I used her black eyeliner on this eye, and then I used her burgundy eyeliner, which in my opinion looks more like plum versus burgundy, so that's what it looks like here. That is what I used to line this eye over here, and I also used it to kind of line where my false lashes are on this eye as well. Let me tell you something. I really enjoyed both of these palettes, because I'm not gonna lie. I got these eyeshadow palettes and I was like, I don't really know how much I'll use them. I think they're okay, but I definitely want to share them, but I don't know how much I'm gonna actually like them. Not that I wasn't gonna like them, but you know how you just see something and you're like, I'm really buying it because I'm a loyal fan of the brand, but like this is probably not gonna be something from the brand I reach for a lot. That's how I felt about these. And I'm gonna say for $36, I am not upset about these palettes. So I was trying to look and figure out which one I liked better. And I think for me, if I had to choose one, Bronze Bliss would get it from me. Okay, let me tell you why. First of all, if you're not new here, I love me some pinky eyeshadows. Give me all the pink eyeshadows. With that said, I have a ton of eyeshadows with shades that are quite similar to this, that could give me the same type of look as this palette does. And I know you're gonna ask me, Chelsea, where are those palettes at? Show us some comparisons. And in all honesty, I'm not prepared for that. I'm so sorry. But what I'm gonna say is this. If you do have, or if you do like more pink-based eyeshadows, you most definitely have in some variation these shades right here. Charlotte Tilbury, I mean almost any of her eyeshadow palettes, you're gonna have some of these shades, or if not all of these shades. In terms of tones, maybe not formula, but in terms of tones, you could definitely recreate this fairly easily if you're someone who's like me and you really already have a lot of like pinky coral type of eyeshadows, even if you have more like mauvey, purplish types of tones. Now, for me, because I do like more warm tones, of course I do like more pinky toned palettes. I don't have a lot of cooler toned palettes, and I also don't have a lot of like straight neutral palettes. So for that reason, that's why I choose Bronze Bliss as if I only had to choose one. And even when I first saw promo pictures of both these palettes, this was the one that I was drawn to first over Nude Allure. I think Nude Allure is beautiful, but I just knew like, I already had that palette over and over and over again. Now for this palette, if you do want like a quick comparison, like Chelsea, I really don't want to buy it. Do you have a recommendation for something that you probably already have? Mine is beat up, but if you have Natasha Denona's, this is the Biba palette, you've got Bronze Bliss. Let me try to hold them up. And poor Natasha palette is all beat up. But if you take a look at this palette, see if I can get them both in here. Although the shades in the Biba palette are not identical, you can see that there's some similarity there to where if you've got Biba, then you don't technically need Bronze Bliss. But let me tell you where these palettes, both of them, could be a selling point for them. These are gonna be great and easy to travel with. Great and easy to travel with. And I do think that even though we're only getting one matte shade in both the palettes, I'm just holding this one up just because I don't want to hold up both. But I do think you can get versatility of your look. So for instance, depending on how you want your eye look to look, if you want it to be more smoky, of course you could add the black to it, or you could just use the shimmering shades and the metallic shades just to give you a simple look. If you're around my complexion, I would say these two shades right here could definitely be like one and done shades on your eye. Take your bronzer, run it through the crease if you do like to have a more matte like base to your eye, and then you can pop really any of these shadows on the eye and you're done. Or if like taking that same concept again, let's say you don't want to smoke out the look with just the black shade, but take your bronzer, mix it with the black shade, maybe add a little of the black shade, and then you can get more of like maybe a slightly smoky look without taking it so far. And then same with the Nude Allure. I feel like with Nude Allure, we could do some of the same things. You could either use the one matte shade and have a little bit of a variation of look, or just go in with the shimmer shades and do a few looks that way. And I do think you can get versatility of these looks to where if you wanted to carry one of them, depending on what you're doing, where you're traveling to, the eye looks that you wanna do, I think that's where these could be really good selling points. And I think for $36, these are a really, really, really good deal. I think we get a good amount of product in the palette. So we get a total of 4 grams of product in each one of the palettes. So in my opinion, I would highly recommend these for those reasons. But if you're somebody who's like, look, Chelsea, I don't need these palettes. then don't get them. You definitely don't need them. These are not like, oh my gosh, drop what you're doing, spend your money on both of these palettes. But I am happy that I picked them up. I know for me, I will be using these again. I definitely recommend them if you're somebody who, like me, who either loves Pat McGrath and you love just supporting the brand. These are definitely greatly formulated. There was not one eyeshadow on either palette that I was just kind of like, ugh, this is kind of a dud. I think for both of these palettes, they will work well on a plethora of complexions. So even if you have a deep, rich complexion, I would say that for the shimmer shades, especially in the ones in Nude Allure, and I'll just show you the swatches of it again, go in with your finger to get more opacity of the shades. So I added 2 more layers of swatches to these 2 shades right here so that you can see them and see how buildable they are. And as you can see, they are buildable either if you keep applying with a brush, maybe spray your brush, use her artistry wand, or go in with your finger. I feel like with Bronze Bliss, we do have just better pigmentation of the shades here, and they are more, and they stand out more too, which is another reason why I like Bronze Bliss over Nude Allure. But I think that either one will work well for anybody, really. It just depends on what you like and which one you feel you would use more. So let me know your thoughts down below. Do you have these palettes? Are you interested in them? If you do have them, tell me your thoughts. If you don't have them, tell me if you want to get them, if they're on your radar. You guys know I want to hear all of that. And if you've made it to this point in the video and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, I would love for you to consider subscribing and joining the Glam Girl Squad. And guys, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in my very next video. Bye, guys.